Welcome to Earth 2 Comic Cast. We're going to be talking about who are we talking about again?
That's
Cloak
great.
and
Cloak and
Dagger.
Dagger.
Those
great.
two characters that showed up that one time in Runaways. That's what we're talking about. And they got their own TV show, because if you show up in Runaways, then you get your own TV show. I don't know anything about these characters, so it's going to be great. But I do love comics, and I actually know a decent bit about comics. It's just these two characters are totally off my radar. So here we are, Earth 2 Comic Cast, a world where superheroes exist and comic book talk is the norm, even though I'm making myself look like a fool right now by saying I don't know about these particular characters. And I am joined here with Bree. Bree, say hi. Introduce yourself. You may know Bree from our Runaways podcast, where we talk about glowing genitals. Bree, where are you from? We want to introduce yourself? Say anything?
I mean, I'm Bree. Hi. That's kind of it.
You got like a Winnie the Pooh thing going on. There's that. We will definitely do a Winnie the Pooh review. Are you excited about that movie, or are you like, this movie's gonna trash my stuff?
Well, first of all, it's called Christopher Robin.
It's not even about poo.
And I am excited because it looks cute as fuck.
It does look cute. And then also here with Keem. Keem, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, Bree stole my intro because I was just gonna be like, I'm Keem. What up?
And I like Pooh Bear.
I also like Pooh. Actually, you know what? I can't share that publicly. I do love Winnie the Pooh, though. That's an off-air anecdote. But I do have on my red shirt. So.
All right. I don't know what that means. All right, Anthony.
Pooh Bear wears a red shirt.
Thank you, Bree. Thank you. We got it. We're here.
Pretty basic stuff.
We also have the person who's going to actually know things about Cloak and Dagger from the comic books and stuff, because he's well-versed and knowledgeable about all things comic books. That would be Anthony. You go by like 5 names now.
Yeah, I do. Hey, everybody. Sorry, I think I was, running late, but, or y'all were early maybe. I don't know, but good to be here.
We were kind of early because I said originally 9 o'clock, but I wasn't totally sure if I could get home early enough to go even earlier. And then when I know you guys on the East Coast, it's pretty late for you. So I figured let's try and fire at 8:30. Anyways.
I also don't think he even read the 9 o'clock. So there's that.
He had no idea. Anthony, you're a little quiet, so if you could turn up your mic somehow, maybe that would help. Get louder. Use your stage voice.
I'll be right back.
All right, all right. We'll keep going. So, Cloak and Dagger. So let's just start off right off the bat with, what did you guys expect going into this show? What were kind of your thoughts before you even turned on the first episode? Why did you even turn on the first episode? We'll start with Keem.
So as usual, I am your comic book novice, where I wasn't allowed to, I don't want to say allowed, but it was discouraged to read comic books during my youth. So anything that I learn about comics, I'm learning like present day. So I wasn't quite sure what to expect because I'd never really heard of Cloak and Dagger. Honestly, I thought it was going to be more of a Dungeons and Dragons type scene, like somebody in a cloak, somebody with a dagger. So that's what I was expecting. The reason I watched it is because you guys said we're going to do a Cloak and Dagger discussion and Keem should be on it. So it's like, well, let me check it out and see what adventures we're going to go on.
I could be wrong, but it feels like this is somewhat connected to the same universe as Runaways. Although I did just think that maybe it's also connected to Luke Cage, apparently. Apparently there's a Luke Cage reference, or no, a Cloak and Dagger reference in Luke Cage season 2.
Oh.
But it has a Runaways feel a little bit. At least going in, that's what I was thinking, is more on the Runaways scale than like the Netflix or Marvel Cinematic scale.
But way darker.
Go ahead, Bree. Before you ever watched the very first episode, what were you thinking going into this?
Does it count if I watch the trailer? Because I kind of had a
yeah. Based on the trailer, based on your hype for the trailer, if you will.
I don't know. I didn't really have any feels. I was just ready to watch it.
Okay.
What were the original questions?
Oh, just like what were you thinking? What were you expecting about the show before you watched it? Were you expecting it to be similar to Runaways? Or
I was hoping it wasn't going to be.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I was just hoping that it would still like.
I think you were the first person to like legitimately turn this on. You basically the one that got us all to be watching Cloak and Dagger because you're the one who sent me a message. I was like, oh, that's a thing. And I started watching, and then I mentioned it on the chat, and then Keem started watching. So I think it started with you, anyways.
Well, because I read the Runaways comics and they were in there, and that's when I first heard about them. And then I heard they were doing a show about them, and I was like, oh shit, because I like them in Runaways.
Cool, makes sense. Anthony, do you have any expectations going in?
So, Cloak and Dagger, they've always kind of been a part of the Marvel background when I got in the comics. And like you said, they should have been Runaways. I think that was probably the most major thing they'd done in years in that point. But they weren't really ever, I don't think they considered D-list characters. So I had no expectations. I kind of never really paid attention to them. They showed up at Maximum Carnage, and he was a cool power up in the game. So that was about it.
So when you say they were D-list characters or below D-list, like what was kind of what were they to the Marvel universe before the show? Like why would they even make a show if they were so low on the list?
So I think that when you look at them for how they are now, because I mean, you got to think like Iron Man was like a B, C-list character for a number of years.
Right.
But there's a lot of material you can find. And I also think that there's not a lot of stuff that fans are going to complain about. Kind of like with Guardians, when they brought Guardians, it's not enough. You got my Rocket wrong. You got my Drax wrong. You just got these kids in this thing that you don't know much about. You're not going to be really going, this isn't canon. And it's such a rich thing you can add things on, like the New Orleans background and the Cloak stuff and all that. That's a lot of interesting stuff that I never read in any of their guest appearances, because they did a lot of cameo stuff because they weren't ever appeared to the story. I'm surprised they haven't died more in comics because they were so expendable.
Oh, you're saying that they probably should have been dying in some of these major events and stuff. They were so expendable that they didn't even show up to die.
Right. And
that's how you do it. You stay under the radar, you never get laid off.
Hey, Bulk and Skull collected them checks for decades. But like I think that my expectation was when I first saw it, I was like, oh, is this gonna be some kind of like CW or really watered down kind of teens drama but not as gritty as what I've seen in the first 4 episodes, which I like.
Got it. So that's something that kind of surprised you right off the bat. It felt a little grittier.
Is my volume okay?
Yeah, it's much better at least.
Okay,
better.
Sorry about that.
It could get louder, but it's better than it was for sure.
All right.
You just got to project. Be loud.
I will use my stage voice.
See? There you go. That was perfect. All right. So, awesome. So you guys, it sounds like none of us really knew much about them. If Anthony knew the most, I guess, because he had seen them show up in...
They also dealt with addiction a lot, which I was kind of wondering how they were going to do in the show.
What are their powers in the comics?
So in the comic, Cloak generates this dark force that constantly hungers for, it's either human life energy or things like
human
that.
life force.
Yeah, and he's constantly
Sorry. Never mind. Go on.
And he can teleport people through this dark force. That's kind of one of the big points in Civil War. It was the only purpose in Civil War is that he could teleport people. And he kind of hungers for it. He's addicted to draining these life forces. Dagger can do, and he can also become intangible, kind of.
He's like a vampire.
Yeah, it's kind of like a life force vampire with teleportation powers.
He's an incubus.
Oh, yeah. Look at you. So hot. Anyway, and Dagger can feed that energy with her light. So he had a hard time controlling those hungers for majority of his early run. And she could feed him her energy so he didn't have to go hunting people. They would also throw humans in there. Also, when he first started teleporting, other people felt very unnerved and drained and maybe even weak after they went through it. But later on in his appearances, he got better at it.
Got it. Because they're going through that dark force or whatever.
Right.
All right, cool. That's helpful information because I mean, one of the things for me just going in is I didn't know what their powers were, and I don't know the show at least yet. I'd say by episode 4, we're starting to understand what those powers are, but it was a little confusing. So, episode 1, we start off with these 2 little kids and kind of telling their early story. What'd you guys think of kind of that prologue story about them as kids? I guess we could, well, let's just go with both. Like, what did you think? So we have Cloak, where he his older brother is kind of talked into stealing a radio, right? And he says no, and then he goes ahead and does it for his older brother, and then that leads into some weird entanglements with the cops or not cops. It's a little confusing for me right now. But ultimately, his older brother gets shot. And he ends up in the water too. Is it because he's running from the cop? I'm trying to remember now.
So
he jumps in the water.
Was his brother and the other friends installed a radio into this guy's car, and they didn't get paid, which is why they were like, let's go get it back because that's ours.
Yep.
Little bro, which is Cloak, overhears and was like, come on, I'll go with you, blah, blah, blah. And then the older brother's like, nah, I'm not doing that. And you don't do it either. But
also, that kid is adorable. Sorry, go on.
He's adorable. But little bro does it, brings the radio to his brother. Brother's like, oh my gosh, no, we got to take it back. Cops come in, and then cops shoot him after they're running.
Is it cops or cop? Singular. Like, isn't it just that
2.
one guy? Oh, there's 2. Okay.
2.
Well, I think there were plural cops chasing, but then there was just the one cop that made it onto the dock.
Got it. Okay.
No, they were. I remember seeing the one. Well, maybe I was just so focused on what was happening.
I'm pretty sure there was.
She's at a dance lesson, and her dad never comes to pick her up, but he eventually does, and she's standing in the rain. And then he's like doing the normal, like, this is why you shouldn't talk on cell phones while you're driving thing. And they go flying off a bridge, right?
Yes.
And crash in the water. And it's a pretty traumatic scene. That was a pretty rough scene, I thought, right off the bat of her like watching the water rise, this little girl. And the weird thing is they don't necessarily exactly show how that resolves, right? You just see her reaching up and then we fast forward. Is that correct?
Are we just talking episode 1?
Yeah, episode 1.
Okay,
yep.
then
Yeah. They don't actually show everything that led up to them first exhibiting powers or anything like that. But give you a small little taste.
Right. Somehow they survive because it's established very clearly with it later on in the first episode. Those kids are them, or I think we all can we're smart. We assume that that's them. So yeah, and then we find he's like at a Catholic school playing basketball, and she's running con games, right? She runs a con game with that one first, the rich guy who comes up again later. And that's kind of where we meet these characters. Were they always, like, I remember in Runaways they were old, but in this they're young. Were they young in the comics originally, and then they aged them up by the time I see them show up in Runaways, Anthony?
They were always oh, go ahead.
Well, I'm just, from what I read, they start out as runaways, and then they get kidnapped by like these experimenters, drug people who use synthetic heroin on them. So I'm assuming they age them up, but I remember them being teenagers from what I read.
That's what I'm missing. The other key piece is that Roxxon plant or rig or whatever blows up while they're in the water, right?
And that's what her dad is yelling about.
Sends some sort of pulse through the water, it seems, or something like that.
Yeah, which might awaken some kind of powers. So I always remember them as adults, or at least late age teens in the comics I remember reading as a kid, which I think was their backstory. And again, like, you know, I remember her costume being a little bit more like skin tight, revealing or whatever. So, you know, as a kid, they all look adult to me.
All right. All right. Well,
what did y'all think about that? The actors they got to play them.
Yeah, good question. I really like him a lot. The guy who is playing Tyrone or Cloak, I like him. Of the actors, his name is Aubrey Joseph. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, Aubrey Joseph. I like him a lot. He has to like play this interesting role where what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, he has a Catholic schoolboy sincerity to him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I can totally imagine this kid being like a Catholic schoolboy, I guess, if that makes sense. There's something very sincere about him, almost to the point of, which comes up once he really starts interacting with Dagger, almost to a point of naivete a little bit, right? So I like him. I don't know. What do you guys think? She's all right. She's not bad.
I'm cool with both of them, and hopefully once I say this, it won't ruin everybody else. But Tyrone's voice kind of bugs me. It's borderline Kermit the Frog, like. And so, like, when he's trying to be really serious, I'm trying to take him seriously, but his voice is just...
Maybe his voice is just cracking still.
It's like a pure goof, and I can't...
puberty.
I can't shake it, and so...
Well, that one scene he hasn't gotten it yet, so maybe he just... and he could come out with, like, a baritone after me. It's like, oh, okay. You know what's going on.
It hasn't happened yet, but... yeah, I think both of them, they both do angsty, snotty teens very well.
They're definitely, yes, they're believable. That's exactly right. They're believable. At no point am I watching this and I'm like, I don't know. They're believable as angsty teens. They're better angsty teens, honestly, than the Runaways angsty teens.
Yeah,
for the most part.
I'd agree with that. I think they the acting was pretty consistent with them. It's much better than the other show I was watching at the time. So, like the Luke Cage show, like sometimes the acting you could tell who were actors and who weren't, and it would draw me out of the episode from things too. But this was pretty consistent for me.
Yeah.
I like them. I also like their younger selves. Like you said, that the cheeks on that boy were adorable, and but yeah, I think she plays really this hard shell kind of vulnerable thing really well, and I think he has that, like, he doesn't really know how the world works. He's angry and doesn't even sure why he's angry a lot of times, I think.
Right. She does a really good job playing a character that's hard to read. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can be hard at all times to tell, which is opposite of him, right? When she is being sincere and when she's not. And also, I think something you hit on there is their supporting cast. Like his kind of girlfriend and her kind of boyfriend that she left in jail. Like, I found those characters, I mean, the acting was solid on them as well, which is not something you normally get. So
yeah, and I thought, well, I guess we're going episode by episode, right?
A little bit, but we don't have to go episode by episode. I was just trying to find a good place to start.
I like in their characters is how their powers inform their trauma, right? And I think it's really because she lost her security, she lost her dad when she was younger. Trust is a real big issues with kids that have those those impactful traumas, like him feeling guilty for his brother getting killed and things like that. And I thought it was really interesting how always assuming someone's going to be coming here to take from you and take your place and not really care, her having the ability to see people's hopes and see their hopes even for her. Like, I can imagine this is scary and almost confirming in a way that the only way somebody might be able to trust that quickly. I don't know. I just loved how that worked with them.
It's interesting because it almost feels like it's in reverse, right? Like,
yeah,
he seems like the more likely to be hopeful in a weird way, and she seems more likely to be kind of down, and yet their powers are almost in reverse, right? Like, it seems like she's most likely to see the worst in people, and he's most likely to see the best in people, and yet their powers work in reverse to that. So that's kind of an interesting contrast.
She also has the more.
Go ahead, Brie.
She also has the more aggressive power with the daggers, even though she's the one who runs away, and then he transports, even though he's the one who usually stays to fight. In terms of how he shit.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. So one thing I want to say is for the first 3 episodes, I was really confused as to what the heck was going on. And maybe part of that is like I was confused, but I was also watching with my non-comic book, like the only other comic book show she's ever watched is Runaways. Non-comic book really liking wife. And she was really confused. She was like, what the heck is going on? Like, I don't understand. So I found the first 3 episodes very hard to follow. I don't know how to explain, but it actually I think has to do with the editing. It felt like there was almost like they were cutting off the full story of things. Like they would bounce around almost in time or in scenes.
So I think what was confusing you or what was throwing off is the alternate scenes that you were seeing, they weren't flashbacks, they were vision. So part of
I don't want to get to the deep visions yet. Let's get to that in a second.
I wasn't going to go into that. I'm just saying part of her power is that when she touches people, she can see their true intentions. Am I right on that?
I think you are right. And we didn't know that when we were watching those moments yet, so it was a little confusing. I think you're right.
I knew.
I knew.
I just think you had somebody sitting next to you that's like, what is going on here? What is she doing? And it's really hard to focus when you have to stop and like explain something to somebody or you're both like having a conversation.
Yeah, but I didn't know if she was reading minds or what. I still don't know.
She's just reading energy and intentions.
Yeah, and they were also having visions of personifications of their personality and their plans, right? So, and the loops. So I really like it. It was really interesting at one point. They were in the loops of their own behavior. So we all go in these behavior patterns, and seeing a disruption in that loop and what actually got them out of those patterns was a very interesting thing in those visions. So you had the patterns, the loops, you had the flashbacks, you had the now, you had the possible hopes and the fears. There's all these different levels, so if you're not paying attention to transition, you don't know what's going on when.
Yeah, I can tell you can't work and watch this. Learn that lesson.
Did Patrick disappear?
He's
my plan worked. I mean, hey, Patrick.
We can't hear you, Patrick.
No, I'm sorry. My window just closed for no reason for some reason. Sorry, go on.
So I was just saying how you had like 5 different levels of kind of reality and perception in the show. So if you weren't paying attention to the transitions, you would get really confused. And having to answer questions to someone next to you probably didn't help.
Yeah, and I definitely, and I don't think I realized there were all those different levels. I don't think I went into this show expecting maybe that much like meta weird stuff. Maybe because I didn't know their powers. Maybe if I knew their powers beforehand, I would have, but I didn't know. I thought she made daggers, and I thought he could teleport.
So I never read any of their miniseries, because none of the miniseries lasted past 5 issues that I know of, maybe 10. But they never exhibited this stuff.
And I still don't understand how their powers work, because I don't understand how sometimes they're able to use them and sometimes they're not, and I'm really confused on what makes it work and not work.
Well, they don't know either yet.
Yeah,
and I think that's a great journey. And I think they're opposites like a magnet. Or they're oppositely polarized, right? So they're repelling each other.
I think so.
So you totally cannot ship these two.
Oh, but they're gonna.
That's that Gambit Rogue. That's that Gambit Rogue stuff. That's that sexual tension that's going to build up.
They're never gonna be able to do anything about it.
Hey, there's a will, there's a way.
There's always like mutant amphitheaters and stuff like that around.
Right. The first time their powers get taken away,
it's gonna be thick. It'll be real thick.
Another thing I appreciate about the show is they showed her not showed her having sex, but they put front that she was having sex, casual sex too. I thought that was really important to her character, and not trying to make her the Madonna or the whore type of thing. Like, this is just how she's processing, this is how she feels, this is what she's doing. And it made him the more kind of virgin character, but they haven't detracted from his masculinity, which I thought was really progressive for 2018.
Yeah, that's pretty. I think you're right. It's pretty impressive. He's definitely like super straight edgy.
Yeah.
So.
And I'm not sure, but I think in the comics he had the addiction, but I'm not. I mean, the drug addiction, but I don't.
I think the addiction was the life force that he had to deal with.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And then
So
that's
it was like metaphorical, but this time we're getting some real addiction with her and the pills.
Actual addiction.
Yeah, interesting. So let's get to the visions in episode 3, because there's almost half the episode is taken up by these visions where they he goes on like a voodoo trance, and she goes. What is the catalyst for her? I'm trying to remember her.
She has a concussion.
She has a concussion. Okay, yeah. So, and they kind of have a weird shared dream, even though, well, not. It's almost like they have each other's dreams. What did you think all that? Like, maybe start with him or her. What she's witnessing of his dream, where he keeps taking different weapons. What was going on there? Or even earlier, I think it starts with her seeing him as a kid. What were kind of the things you were seeing in those visions? Because those visions may be informing the character, but I think they may also just be informing the story ahead as well. So maybe that's why I'm curious to go there.
Who'd you ask?
I asked all of you because I wasn't sure which of you would have anything to say on that.
Bree looks like she's got thoughts on this, and I'm interested to hear them.
Wait, okay, well, first of all,
what did you think of what's going on with him?
You keep saying vision. Are you talking, when you say vision, are you talking about just episode 3, or are you talking about their powers? Because episode 3 wasn't their powers.
I'm talking about the visions they have when they each go into kind of that trance.
So when he goes into the bed and she has the concussion.
Yeah. So those specific visions seem like foreshadowing and really important to their characters, and we don't necessarily know everything that's going on. If anything, they inform some of the things we learned in episode 4. What were your thoughts on that vision for what she saw? What was your thought on what she saw first?
Okay, loved it. So for her, it started with him playing with his older brother, and his older brother's like, his friends come and like, oh, I don't want to stay. I'm just gonna play with Tyrone. That's his name, with Tyrone, and he's happy, and he gets a check with blood on it, but like he doesn't feel like he deserves it. And then in the woods, all those weapons he keeps choosing the wrong one because he always wants to fight the guy, but like it's not the right way. And then she comes in and gives her the dagger. I don't really
slow
understand
down, slow down. You're smarter than I am. So he's this is why it's good that I'm the host, because I'm the idiot. So he's picking out the wrong weapons because he's not fighting the right way. Can you explain that?
He keeps choosing weapons until she puts down the daggers, which I don't super get. But when she does that, he chooses the handcuffs. Because in every other way, he dies in like he either goes to jail, he like dies. It's not working because he keeps doing the same thing, and it's just he keeps choosing violence and death over like trying to go about the proper way of going and being like, hey, this dude shot my brother, and getting him punished.
And then once he chooses the handcuffs, what happens?
Well, then I think it changes. Then they jump to something.
So it wasn't clear to me, because I was curious about that, because it wasn't clear to me that like the handcuffs were the right choice. But maybe now you make it sound like, oh, that was where they were trying to go, is like you need to choose the handcuffs to the good choice. But I was like, he's just going to be doing this cycle forever. So that's interesting. Because she also, like you said, laid down the dagger, and I was like, oh, maybe the dagger is the right choice, and the handcuffs are just like one more choice until he gets to this dagger.
See, that's where I got a little confused. But it's also a dream. That's all about symbolism stuff. But like, she puts down the daggers, which I guess in my head, would just be like light and like the hope and like the better choice, which is why like I thought he was going for the daggers, but he picks up the handcuffs, and that cop goes to jail, and like he doesn't die for once, and then he gets to go with his parents, and then that's when the money happens again. He keeps getting checks.
Yeah, I didn't get the money part too much either.
Well, they talk about it in episode 4. I'm just wondering, did you watch?
I did watch episode 4, but I'm trying to like put myself back in the moment while I was watching the dream and trying to think about. So the dagger. One interesting thing you just said there, though, is that the dagger. It seems to insinuate that the dagger has more power than just a weapon to kill people with. That it had an effect on his actions.
So I think her daggers, in a way, are going to represent. So, one, he's locked in a cycle, right? So he's locked in a cycle of hatred and guilt, and almost like he deserves his own destruction. So remember the madam or the they gave her a name in their culture, but the voodoo lady was like, he doesn't think he deserves to be saved, right? He thinks it's like this rage and this guilt, and this person took his brother and affected his life and his family so much. Kill him. That's the way. I'm going to get locked up, or I'm going to get killed, and my life will be over. And I can't. So I think that her dagger and her presence was representing the peace and the hope of just proving that cop's guilty, rather than just going down the same path of violence, which won't give him the peace he actually is searching for and the balance he's searching for. So he's off of balance because he keeps approaching these issues. Even we saw with the fight, he's approaching these problems and these stressors with the same aggressive anger he gets from what he saw and was traumatized by when he was a kid.
Got you. So maybe it's just her presence in some way that is having that positive effect on him. That she interfered in the situation a little bit, or yeah. All right. Well, let's flip it around. Let's go to he also has a dream sequence. Bree, you want to recap that and talk about your thoughts on what she sees for him?
It starts with on the Roxanne roof where he sees her as a younger ballet girl missing that ballet shoe, and she's dancing and she's about to get electrocuted, and then he saves her from that, and then they're in the woods again.
Stop there. Does that mean anything at all? They keep injecting Roxanne in, but not really explaining it yet. So I was just curious
is the company that her father worked for.
I get it. They're the bad guy, clearly. They're gonna be the bad guy. I was just trying to were there any clues in that scene about Roxanne that I was missing?
I was typing while I was watching. Ask the question: was Roxanne on that check at all? Was there any markings on the check about where who
it might be since that's who his mom works for, or she did work for. She worked for them at least on one job because she does PR, I think, and that's what she was talking about on the phone. She was like, "This is a bad thing for Roxanne. We cannot do this. Blah blah blah. Why'd you do this? Blah blah blah." And that's
dumb. I'm so dumb. I thought she was doing a political campaign or something. I'm such an idiot. Sorry.
So there was blood on the check that possibly is from Roxanne.
I was thinking maybe blood money.
Yeah.
But also, in episode 4, they talk about it and talking about how he doesn't feel like he deserves it. And in the beginning of his little thing, he's playing with his brother, and instead of going and wanting to go get that radio like in real life he did, and it led to his brother getting shot, instead they're playing in basketball and not dealing with the radio crap, and they're just playing and having fun. And that's probably what he hoped would have happened instead of what actually happened, which is what she said. And then that's all I could think of so far, is that he doesn't deserve, he feels all this opportunity he has.
Well, so then you have to think about there's guilt, because if he hadn't gone and stolen that radio for his brother, then he wouldn't have brought it to his brother, and his brother wouldn't have had to say, okay, let's take it back, and then they wouldn't have run into the cops. So anything good that's happening, it probably always goes back to the survivor's remorse, that it should have been me because he's the one who stole, and then his brother had to get him out of that situation, and it cost him his life.
I concur.
Makes sense.
So
what's going on in the like weird glass room with the
Really?
board meeting?
That was really basic. Okay.
Listen, I just pretend that I don't know, and it's the whole point
wait,
of doing a
Okay.
podcast.
there's one other part about that thing though, that we get that their consciousnesses are connected. So they might
Yes.
be the two sides of the same energy spectrum. Something might be going on there. So they're in, because it wasn't like they were in sync. And also the powers keep drawing them to each other, or is. So we got that their subconscious is connected some way. The subconscious of both of them are connected. So
Right.
yeah, said it a lot.
Go on.
Well, what?
So the glass room. Why was it a glass room?
Okay, her dad worked for Roxxon, and if you were listening in the first episode on the phone when he was driving, he was actually yelling at the company he worked for, so at Roxxon, and he was saying, you need to not shut down the rig because 1, structure integrity will fail, 2, it will be one more thing that I can't remember, and then 1, energy dispersion, which is exactly what happened when they crashed and they were in the water.
I totally didn't notice that at all.
And so in the glass box, her dad is tied to the chair and having to deal with all these people yelling at him and blaming him for stuff that he can't do anything about because he's trapped. And she keeps running instead of dealing with it, which is exactly what she's doing in real life, whereas her mom is right there trying to get the case reopened, but she keeps running. And the other one, when she's back again, her mom is there trying to fight, but she just runs again. And then Cloak is like, you gotta stop. You gotta stop and you gotta deal with this. And then I think she goes to the window and helps, but like, also,
I thought she like ran into the woods.
She does.
And he was being tortured, right?
Yeah, he's getting tortured. That's in the other one I messed up. In one of them, they like pour water on his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is how he died. He drowned. And the explosion happened. And that was all because of the company. And the company took all their shit. And now they broke as shit in trailer park houses. She ain't doing that anymore.
How did the car accident happen again?
Sorry, say that again?
How did the car accident happen again?
He
I
was
don't even
yelling.
want to say.
He was on the phone and being a horrible driver, and he shouldn't have been on the phone at all. But like he was like swerving a little, and then he was yelling at Roxxon about why you shouldn't shut down the rig and stuff. But then they did it, and an explosion happened, and he almost hit another car, which is why he swerved, and then they crashed off.
Okay, so there was nothing that could have been like attributed to somebody else, right? Like
not really.
It was just bad judgment.
Yeah, and it was like stormy and raining, but like he was swerving before.
Yeah, because he was too angry and he was too into his phone call.
Or maybe he was drugged.
Okay, just make stuff up now.
Sure. I'm not sure where that theory is.
It is not for your theory, Patrick.
I am going to be so pissed off if by like the last episode they like do some kind of flashback to somebody pouring something in his pocket. I'm going to cut it off right there and stop watching.
This ain't Star Trek. Those kinds of theories only work when we're watching Star Trek and talking about Star Trek.
That's true.
But, yeah.
All right.
I think it just ends when he's like, you gotta stop, you gotta face this, and like he holds her with the Dark Force, I think, or something. It was weird. When he yells at her, he like puts his hand out and like she doesn't run, and then she starts shining, and then I don't super remember what happens after that part.
Yeah. A little blurry.
Yeah. All right. Well, then we get to episode 4. That's when I almost felt like the first 3 episodes were prologue for me. I don't know about you guys, but it felt like
it so much because like I thought it was fine. First 2 episodes, they get their powers, or like their powers activate, and they have no idea what's going on. So I don't know why you think you would.
I was so scared. Bree can vouch. I was so scared that episode 2 we were going to switch and we were going to be looking at the entire events that just happened, but from the viewpoint of the parents.
No, it would have been from the top.
I was so scared. So let me just say, first of all, at least this show about teenagers is actually about teenagers. That makes me very, very happy. That makes me very happy. And then episode 4, I feel like that's when we really get to know. I didn't understand the timing of things, but other than that, I thought the episode was really good and finally started to explain what was going on. And I didn't actually care about the timing. I think, you know, part of it was I was just impatient for them to finally hash things out. By episode 3, I was like, listen, just put these people in a room and let them figure this out. And that's exactly what they did in episode 4, is put them in a room and figure it out. So that, I think I just needed that going in. Uh-oh, I think we lost Keen for a moment.
Wait, so in the last episode 3, that's where he teleported and shot at her, right?
That was the end of episode 2.
That's the end of episode 2, opening episode 3.
And that's how she gets the concussion for 3.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. Then does the bath thing. And then end of 3 led to, what was the end of 3?
End of 3 is when the vision is all done, and then he kisses Evita. And then...
Oh, right.
Yeah, and they're walking
That girl
towards
earned that kiss. That girl earned that kiss.
But, like, they're walking near the church, and then he's like, oh, shit. Oh, I forgot one thing. She's drugging those men.
Oh, yeah, the drugging and the rape. Attempted rape.
Yes.
After that, like, every guy, he gets into the church, and she is, like, a little girl again, like, in a little church boy outfit. Just
and that female cop is the Luke Cage connection. She's apparently a cop from the office where, what's her name, works. And they mention her in Luke Cage 2, in episode 2. Misty, yeah, she's from the same office as Misty. And then in episode 2, they mentioned that O'Neill, I think is her name, has been transferred down to New Orleans. And then that's why she's treated like a brand new cop by all the other cops in her office.
Oh, she's in the that's why he said that Brooklyn shit. But that's she's in the comics apparently as Mayhem.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, she wasn't always Mayhem, but.
What do you think about her sidekick? We didn't talk about her sidekick at all. Dagger's
her boyfriend.
What's up with that?
I thought he was sad.
I don't. All right, so I'm a little confused on that. Can Bree, the Almighty Explainer, explain something to me?
What are you confused about? She literally runs away, and she literally ran away.
Yeah. She ran away, but isn't he being held on charges based on her killing that guy for him trying to rape her, right?
That guy is not even dead.
I know. No. Or not killing, but stabbing him, right? But isn't her boyfriend being held based on charges? What is he being held for then?
One of the robberies, the last job or whatever, right?
I don't think he's even held for that.
What
if
is
he
held
then
for?
I don't know why he would be held at all. I think she only arrested him to get to Olivia. What's her name? Tandy.
Yeah, well, but I understand that. But now she's gotten to Tandy, or at least she's like, I guess she didn't get to Tandy. Did she get to Tandy? She got to Tandy.
She got to Tandy.
So why did she like, is he out of jail now, or is he still in jail just rotten?
I think he has to be gone. Or if anything, they got him on other charges, but like it's not like she could do anything. And if I was him, if I got out, I'd be like, fuck that bitch. She took $6,000.
They need to explain that. I'm confused because she just like drops him, and then are we just supposed to forget about him for the rest of the show, or what?
Well, didn't she drop by that vision? Yeah, didn't she drop him because when she touched him, like she saw his true intentions, that he really wanted to like be with her and love her and have them be happy together. But because she's all messed up and fearing happiness and commitment and all that stuff, they
just like, seem to be really setting him up as a somewhat important character, and then he just disappears. So I was just a little confused.
Also, you could also remember it's only episode 4.
Yeah, but our job is to review the first 4 episodes based on this is all we got.
This is like you watching the first episode and being crying that they didn't get the villain yet.
What episode happened where she touched the lawyer's hand and found out that he was actually really down for her mom?
That was 4.
Was that 3?
That was episode 4. Also, that's a little bit weird because like earlier she's like selling Tandy stuff to get coke for them to snort up, and then he's like actually a good guy.
I mean, he could still be a cokehead, and
I guess so. Oh, that's fine. It just seemed like they were really I don't know. I was actually surprised at how nice of a guy he suddenly turned out to be based on the guy we met in like episode 1 or 2.
I mean, to be fair, though, we were seeing him through Tandy's eyes. Yeah. Which is what they should have done in Runaways with the parents, but whatever.
What happened with? I
Tell
missed
us how
that.
you
Y'all
feel about
blinked
that,
out.
Marie.
Wait, what did he say?
No, explain. Explain. I missed what you just said.
Just the guy that we saw in the beginning, we're always seeing it through Tandy's eyes. So like the way it's all set up and like what we see is through Tandy's eyes. And like after a little more, she's around him more. And like she doesn't just see the guy who's like just fucking her mom because she has a great ass and like doing coke with her money. She sees a guy who's actually dating her mom and is also trying with her because that's what you do when you're trying to get with a mom.
Yeah, and he cares.
Yeah. And
Got it.
And I like how that kind of cut through her defenses because she was so sure he was another like user, right?
Yeah.
And I think about, I mean, it's fantasy, but I thought, wow, so many kids or people that have been hurt time and time and time and time again, and they build up this shell, and it's so hard to trust again. How great that would be if people would cut through all that and to actually find that. And I thought, a guy that's actually like, no, my perfect life is, my hope is that me and your mom are getting married, and you think of me as dad too, or as part of your family. That was like the sweetest thing.
Right? And like you can't even say like all this bullshit he was lying because like it's her power to see that shit.
Right.
It's adorable.
Right. And so she can't do a denial. Like, yeah, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Everybody drops the other shoe, but when you see the truth and she knows how it works, she has to cut through it. It was nice. I love that whole little moment. It was great for me.
Yeah. But well, when you think about shoes dropping, you also have to look at the fact that he's still married. So even though his hope and his want is to be this great husband to her mom and a great father.
Yeah,
he's married.
I mean,
his wife calls while they're at the dinner table.
But like she knew that from the beginning too.
Aunt looks so confused.
I missed that part. Forewarning, I was typing notes while this was on, so like sometimes I would look up and I had to piece together what actually happened and went back down. So,
that's what Bree is for.
Okay. Yeah. Wait. Where's the camera? Where's the camera? People, listen to me. You can't work and watch this show. You miss so much when you try to multitask. You can't multitask with this show. You got to pay attention.
I agree. I think this is a multitask show. Well, here's the problem. Other shows like Runaways have set us up to believe that there's going to be a bunch of filler where you can be like, whatever, and not really pay attention. And then there will be actually like 10 minutes of plot development. But this show feels like you said, you got to pay attention to every minute because that's why I keep having Bree kind of recap because Bree, you're really good at seeing the details. And it seems like the details in this show matter a lot more than most shows.
Yeah. And like I said, I watched this right after I finished my Luke Cage marathon, right? So like,
wait, hang on, we'll get to that.
I don't know.
Hang on, we're gonna get to that. So just before we get to that, which is the next thing, before we get to that, there's two other things I want to get to. Number one, what did you think about their final interaction together? Their time, kind of talking it out. Eventually, they leave angry, but there's like some tender moments before that. How did you feel about episode 4's real crux, which is finally Cloak and Dagger together? Don't all go at once.
I guess it didn't really...
All right, I'm calling names now. It's on. All right. When I call names, usually Mo gets all angry because I don't ever call on him. But
guess who ain't here though? Guess who wasn't dedicated enough to be here for this discussion?
I have to. When I have to keep a tally to make sure I'm keeping him even with everybody else, because otherwise he gets really angry. All right, so go ahead, Keith. What did you think of that as the non-comic book? I mean, I'm also don't know anything about the comic, but as the person really coming into it fresh, what did you think about finally seeing literally the name of the show's two characters together?
It was interesting to see them together and to see them kind of talking things out and pointing out each other's weaknesses and stuff. But overall, it really didn't have an effect on me one way or the other, like especially, towards the end when they were just like, F this, because the show is called Cloak and Dagger. So
like, they're going to work it out.
That at some point they're going to partner up.
Yeah. At some point they're gonna partner up. Exactly. What do you think about that? Like, do you think the show is gonna be able to ride on their shoulders, the two of them together?
I think so. I mean, so far they have a compelling enough story with the two of them apart, like where you just want to keep watching to see them get together and see how they're gonna, you know, use their powers and help each other to figure all the shit out. Like, I feel like they'll do well.
Was there any interaction, Anthony or Bree, like as far as how their powers work together and that kind of stuff that surprised you, or?
I'm surprised that he doesn't need her in terms of consuming life force stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's any of the life force stuff.
Which is like
wrong?
One of the main things. Like when I first got interested in them, one of the main things was how like codependent their relationship was, because without her, he'd have to consume life force, and there were also vigilante stuff. But like they seem like they're going a more justice route and not necessarily just let me.
And without him, doesn't she overcharge? Like if he doesn't take off our excess energy, I think in the comics she has a chance of like blowing up or.
Ooh, I don't actually know that part.
I think I remember that. Like, I'm gonna have to Wikipedia now. Anyway, yeah, but I think that's actually the thing. Like it's really a symbiotic relationship. He needs that force. She gives it off. If she doesn't give it off, she can overcharge and just kind of blow up, kind of thing.
Are they a romantic couple in the comic book?
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, the entire plot on Hulu is these people are gonna fall in love.
Right.
Like that's literally what it says.
I kind of like the moments where they actually just kind of open up to each other and talk about the there's actually good acting in there too. Like they were talking about their different, how they saw each other, which I thought was really great, that they saw each other's core needs and cycles and were able to explain it to it. That's a really deep connection to start forming, right? Really raw. And then I like how she was explaining it, and she was like, you know, it's like sex. And he looked over like, yeah. That was so great. That was so great. You didn't have to tell me anything about his character. He showed me with their acting, and I love that. I thought that the fight at the end kind of was like, okay, you just told somebody to go kill yourself, but again, I feel like they were so raw in those emotions. Like you just dealt with a bunch of stuff. You're gonna have a reaction, and I mean that seemed plausible to me.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought that I think that's what I've been waiting for. So I'm excited to see them as a team together. I mean, it seems like a lot of times with these shows, I'm almost more excited for season 2 than season 1. Like I just want to get over with the kind of prologue stuff and like
the origin story and all the world building and all that.
Yeah, like let's just get to the actual show. So, anyways.
Well, I also I like this, again, we talked about it before, I like how they can't touch each other, which I think is going to be an issue in the future. At least I see it as an issue.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. They can even use that as a power at times, the way it blasts.
I feel like part of that is because they can't control it yet, though.
Could be. But, I mean, getting over that's going to be interesting. And I think that these are the first people to actually listen to their core problems, and I thought that was a good way to start building this relationship that might be only mentally or emotionally symbiotic, but like, I don't know. I thought it was cool.
I felt so bad for him when he was getting beat up and he pulled that thing over him. I felt so bad for him. Oh man. All right. So, sorry, were we gonna say, Anthony?
No, I just kind of felt like I wonder what the bullies thought. Like in your blanket. I don't know.
Like a little 19. You can't see me.
Right. It's like I was like, these some 80s bullies. They bringing that 80 bullying back, right?
All right, so let's talk about this. We're gonna close up here in a minute, but I just wanted to finish by talking about what are your thoughts about this in comparison to the rest of the kind of Marvel universe. And Anthony, you really want to talk about it in comparison to Luke Cage. Bree, maybe you want to talk about it in comparison to Runaways. Like, what are your thoughts now that we're 4 episodes in? We definitely at least have a sense of where this is going. What are you expecting from the show? What would be
before
really
we didn't talk about
exciting to be in the future for the show?
No, we didn't talk about anything. Anything cool. Anything of the stuff that's actually finally happening.
Oh,
what?
Oh, okay.
What do you mean? What are you talking
Oh,
about?
you're just like, oh yeah, they totally just talked, and that was the entire episode. And you don't like go into the fact that like they try to help each other deal with something, and so he goes like, "Where's my bike?" And so he could find that cop. No, you just ignore that, or like the fact that she put herself in chains and literally jumps to her death. Just let's skip over suicide real quick.
Let's not
Anthony covered the suicide. He covered it. All right.
No, I didn't.
What? Sorry.
I didn't really...
What else would you like to cover in episode 4, Bree?
Well,
specifically.
I'm just not going to talk about how she tried to kill herself. Like, that's just not important at all.
No, you're going to talk about it. Go ahead.
No, I'm just not.
No,
Okay,
I was really shocked. I was actually really shocked that she tried to kill herself. I was like really shocked. I didn't get out of it.
Really...
But I thought it was pretty.
Wow, let him talk.
I thought it was really important to see how we don't really understand how close people are to actually doing these things. And even if they get into the midst of it, depending on how they choose the method, you know, it might be too late once they start down it. And I thought that was really interesting because she chained herself, which I still have questions about the chain, and jumped, which I think also echoes her pain a lot and her trying to express her pain. I'm surprised she's not a cutter, actually. And then again, the dagger symbol. I think that dagger is really. I think they're using as symbolism that that's the thing that cut her free. I mean, I get it could have been any of their powers, but like, I don't know. I like that. I think seeing where her mental stability is, and that's a really big thing to put in episode 4 for this new series. I thought was going to be really kiddie. You know what I mean? And I think that was a really important thing to have for a young teen, a young girl, to just have all these things going on, how raw everything was, and to go through that and show that scene, that was deep. But, literally deep.
I mean, if you think about it though, they've done that since the first episode. Like, other guy shot in the chest. Like, what the fuck? Why? Like, I wasn't expecting it to get this dark this quick. Like,
Cloak, you know, and
I thought it was Dungeons and Dragons, Aunt. You were.
You know, that actually makes sense.
But I mean, and you know, with her pill addiction and all that stuff, they've been pretty heavy from jump. So while it's surprising that she wanted to chain herself and like jump, like it wasn't surprising because it's been dark.
I think you guys are bringing out something really interesting, which is that, so everybody talks about how dark and gritty the Defenders series is, and this doesn't feel to me at all dark and gritty like the Defenders series, and yet at the same time, it is dark and gritty in a different way.
I would disagree with that, but go ahead.
Well, I just feel like I'll be really surprised, for example, if Cloak and Dagger gets, say, as violent as the Defender series has gotten. Like, that would feel almost out of character for the show at this point. I could be wrong.
That's not fair. Defenders has these people who, like, 2 kung fu fighters, and then 1 grown-ass guy who's buff as hell and is with the bullet-proof skin, who literally goes through and fights people and drug lords. But, like, these are just kids.
I still feel like the tone is different, though. Like, I feel like if this was part of the Netflix series, the way the story would even be told right now would be different. I like this way better. Like, I think I guess what I'm trying to draw out is that this feels more internally dark than externally dark, if that makes sense. I mean, they kind of do paint New Orleans as like, it's interesting because Runaways has all those LA commercials. There ain't no New Orleans commercials on this, but like they do paint it as like a little bit more rough, but like I don't know, not even really. Like I don't know. I just think it's interesting to see that you have 2 different series of comic books. They're both trying to show some level of realism and grit, and yet tonally, I feel like they're very different from each other. Everybody got really quiet. Did I hit a button or something?
No, I think that so there's grit here, right? So there's emotional turmoil that I gotta say, one of the reasons I like this show so far is the emotional aspect. I mean, the behavioral health aspects of it, kind of like Jessica Jones, right? So one of the reasons I love Jessica Jones so much, they deal with some real internal stuff that we don't really see a lot on television in that form, I think. As far as the gritty of the violence, we're only on episode 4. We've seen people shot, attempted rape, stabbing, and we don't know where we're going to go before. We've seen a blade pulled out as friends beat themselves. Which, by the way, Patrick, next time I see you, next time you visit, I'm pulling a switchblade out on you just to show how much I care. So I don't recognize this Baltimore boy.
What we should do is try and memorize the lines from that moment. Yeah, so go on.
And I think that it's set up for really like a psychological thriller kind of drama thing with these powers. I mean, would you look at the Netflix shows? Luke Cage really isn't gritty. Like this season wasn't really gritty. You know, he impacts punch somebody, right? So you don't have to really see any real damage to people. Jessica Jones is more mental damage and physical like impact.
There are some moments though in Jessica Jones, especially season 1, that like they're like turn away from the screen moments for sure.
I feel like the Netflix shows don't have as much hope as Cloak and Dagger so far, and I feel like part of that is because of literally Dagger as a person, and then they also still have family. And like part of the part where like I'm not as depressed watching the show versus watching Jessica Jones deal with her shit is they have family and some support so far. And like she sees hope, so like there's still like a light in the show that I don't think I feel with some of the Netflix shows. Like I feel like it's also lower scale in terms of the villains so far. Like Roxxon may be a big corporate company, but what we see is one person and how it affects them. But like you got Daredevil fighting like these entire corporations of ninjas, Iron Fist saying like, "Oh no, the hand!" Like it's like big stuff. Whereas he just wants to take down one cop. She just wants literally any hope for herself.
I can see that, and I can see also like, I think that what Patrick keeps calling the visions when they were going through their own stuff, seeing each other as kids. I think that is a way to bring hope. You feel like there could be healing through their connection, and it's kind of like if Jessica Jones got a different type of powers, maybe the way she copes with her trauma, would be different. Would literally be different. That's a good point. I approve.
Cool.
So I just think that I love the acting in this so far for the first 4 episodes. I feel like Luke Cage kind of like. Oh, I also felt like up until that one speech about the world's trying to kill me because I'm a black man. I felt like they were subtly putting things in there about the social climate that we're in without hitting us over the head with it. And I was kind of appreciating that. Like you're not shying away from it, but you're not. Everybody's not making a motivational speech every 15 minutes. I mean, I know I do when we drink, but like most
when
people
we
don't
drink.
talk like that.
You've made like 5 motivational speeches just now.
But I really enjoyed that, and also liked how they went from her perspective of just because I'm white, don't assume that I don't have issues or I don't have problems with the system. It's kind of like when you look at The Wire, it talks about how the systems that we've in place have become the new gods, and the gods will not save you, and how we cope with these different systems. It really affects. Not talking literal God, Patrick, or anybody else. I'm talking about the gods.
No, I thought that was a good comparison.
Okay.
Yeah.
I talk a lot.
I think that they are definitely setting themselves up to really explore social issues in a way that, like you said, doesn't feel like it's over the head, but just exists around them. And I'm actually really excited by that prospect.
Part of the things I love about it is like all the parallels. Like they're opposites. So like he may have the privilege of being like upper middle class, but he's still black, and that's the privilege he doesn't have. She may be white, but she's poor and has to steal, and like he's dark, he's like she's like they have so many opposites, and I think they use that really well.
That was the one that took me out of the thing. When he was running through that party in a cemetery, chasing some white blonde hair and blue eyed white girl.
Like, no, not in well for you.
No good home training. You ain't got no good home training. And let that white girl have your wallet.
So as far as the social issues, I know, like, Ant, you feel like they're moving it in subtly. But to me, like, again, just from that first scene where the brother gets shot in the chest, like he's standing there like this, but because the white cop gets scared by the noise, like he shoots him in the chest, and I was just like, wow. So this is going to be extra
it might not
woke.
be,
and then
it might not be subtle, but it doesn't feel unnatural. Sometimes that stuff can feel like it's inserted artificially into the story, but this feels like it's part of the story.
Yeah, but it's really just but it's still like putting it out there in an obvious way. Like as soon as she started taking after that first scene where she gets away from she drugs the guy and robs him, and then she goes back to her hideout and starts with the pills, I was like, are we talking about opioid crisis here? Is that what's happening? Like, okay. So I think they're dropping stuff in there for you to see, and they're not really hiding it, but they're just not making.
They're not saying it outright, even though that's what Patrick would need.
Right. So, hey. But it's kind of like, so there's a technique to get people to change or to come to certain conclusions called motivational interviewing. We don't give them the answer or blatantly come out to say what's wrong with them. You get them to like, oh, I guess it is weird because he couldn't walk into these parties and steal people's things like that. They would find him instantly. And it is weird that, that all right, if I was a cop with a gun or an explosion, I might pull the trigger because I'm scared. It is weird that what do? You ruin your life. They cover it up. They, things like that. I can see that happening. So without just saying it blatantly, you let them get to that conclusion. But I completely agree, Keem. It's not like there are some subtle clues in the background that you have to decipher. You connect the dots pretty quickly. But
yeah,
but
like they're not dropping breadcrumbs. They are throwing those in your face. Like so.
But they're not forcing the bread down your throat. Sometimes, and I feel like in some media where I get the message, I appreciate the message. I don't need a speech every time, Luke Cage, about police. I get it. Yeah, I agree. It's okay. We don't talk. Why are you quoting me why are you quoting somebody every 2 seconds? I will read the book. Give me the syllabus. It'll be all right. That's how I kind of feel. And this one, it wasn't, except for his speech about the world's trying to kill him. But even that was okay. It's okay.
It was one line.
I liked his mom's speech.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, it wasn't really a speech, but.
And the parents' fear. It was such a real fear for minorities. And to see that put on screen, like, I got to think if the show gets popular or people who didn't think about that stuff before think about how scared you have to be that your child could be thought is shot because of a threat or end up missing, or like everybody has that fear. Like
also just that fear that they can fall right back down too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the sense that sense that's very real that at any moment, because it seems like they were lower class and now they're upper class or middle class.
Like
and you get a sense that she has that fear at all times that they'll fall right back to where they were.
Yeah. And I think that they talked about, he said something like, your mom pulled us up, like your mom worked to do that, which I think is interesting on so many levels, but also on a story level, I'm wondering what she had to do, maybe what deal they accepted, I'm curious if there's more to that. I would like to see if there was more to that. Because again, you said the check might be from that corporation too.
Blood money.
Or what? Right. So, did they give her a check? Did they, what I mean? What do you do? Because you can't get justice.
It kind of sounds like she just works for them in general. So maybe she just got like a real good job with them. Because I don't know if Roxanne has a connection to him other than the mom yet.
Right. We don't know, but we also kind of feel like the cop works for them or the detective works for them. And while he seems to be like a piece of crap, he also seems to have said he's got a kid. So I hope he's just not two-dimensional evil too. I hope there's more to these stories to connect stuff as we go forward.
Do we have a connection with the cop and the Roxanne yet?
I don't think so. Maybe I missed that one.
Oh, that might have been in my mind. Sorry. I think that I have a theory about something. All right, never mind. I'll wait. All
He
right,
does have
never
a
mind.
connection to the rapist or the attempted rapist, which connects to Tandy. But so far, I don't think there's a connection to Roxanne with the cop yet. So far, he's just been trying to sell drugs. And I just want to say how crazy I thought it was that the police force didn't defend the guy. They just pretend he didn't even exist.
Oh yeah, that actually really threw me off.
But like, apparently he has an uncle.
Right,
Well,
there's an uncle there.
I didn't think he was a real cop for the first 2 episodes.
So yeah, so you didn't think maybe he was a real cop, maybe he was right, but then you see him again as a detective. He has a powerful uncle. Cloak's power keeps taking him to where he needs to be, which was Roxanne building and then walking out. He ran into the cop, right? I think that's just not. I think there's more there. I think there's more there with the drug thing. But it could just be my mind wandering off in a different direction because I think I made up a whole scene that might have connected it.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's a connection. I'm just saying I don't think there is one yet.
They haven't shown it.
Yeah. Yeah. You will learn as we do these shows together. I will sometimes go on whole tangents of storylines. You'll get used. You'll see. It'll be all right.
All right. So we're gonna wrap it up here, but I just want to go.
One more thing.
Okay, go ahead. One more thing. Go ahead. I
like that the origin, I guess, of the cloak isn't just some trash bags so far.
Yeah.
Because of the beanie and stuff, and how he's gonna finish his brother's cloak.
And I knew nothing about that culture. And I love that someone had their history or their research on point. At least I assume. I mean, they could have got it all wrong for if you're actually in that culture. So I hope they have somebody on there advising, giving that, because that was so interesting to me. And I want to learn more about it.
I like that whole him meeting up with the friends or his dad's friends, like that whole backstory. That was awesome. And also, I think another thing you wanted to talk about, Bree, was him going to into the police office.
Yeah, he finally tried to do something like real.
Which was, and just his sense of dread once he was actually sitting there, and the way they kind of portrayed that was very, very good.
Or what's it called? So he's finally doing something that is more to do with like getting justice, like she told him. And then she even tried staying and like doing shit with the lawyer, and then he died.
Yeah, and in both cases, they totally.
And what did the lawyer? I'm assuming the lawyer died, and then she did the suicide attempt because, well, my last chance.
Yeah, that's what happened.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, she.
Oh wait, I thought the mom broke up with him right before that though.
The mom broke up with him, but then she went home and was sending 500 messages to him. I was like, please come back. I'm so sorry. I'm a drug addict. I have to deal with my widow. And then he was dead. I was like, oh, shit.
He was already dead when she was calling him. That's why you're like, oh, this is rough. This is rough. Just to hear her mom calling a dead man.
And then she also said hope. He was good.
Yeah. And her mom's, and I think her mom is still in love with Dagger's dad and his memory. It's such a heartbreaking. I don't know. They got me. I did not think I was going to like this show at all. I was not going to give this show any kind of real attention.
You kind of didn't, though, Ant.
I gave it more than Patrick. All right, listen, George more than Patrick.
I was paying attention. I'm just not as quick as you guys. All right, so why don't we go around and just talk about? Let's close up. But I would like to hear just your broad, couple sentence review and thoughts for what you're hoping for in the future. So, Anthony, why don't you start? What is your review of the first 4 episodes, and what are you hoping for going forward?
Couple sentences.
More layered than I thought it would be. Pleasantly surprised that I was wrong. Give it a try.
What hopes do you have for the future?
I hope they do a deeper dive into their powers, connection, and the lore of the community they're with. And we get a different side we've got from the other Netflix shows, and they continue the good character building.
Cool. Bree, what about you? Review of the first 4 episodes, and what are your thoughts for the future?
Good shit. More good shit. Basically what he said, but I was like,
I totally
went as layered as I wanted
Runaways. You brought me around. I wasn't even gonna watch this show, so good job, Bree. You brought Earth to Cloak and Dagger. Well done.
Good shit. It's actually about
You're
10 characters.
Keem, review of the first 4 episodes and thoughts for the future.
First 4 episodes, still, I mean, to me, it was just dark as hell. But I'm also appreciating like the realness and how they're just not shying away from stuff. So and I didn't have any expectations going into it because it was literally just y'all being like, "Keem, watch this," and being like, "Okay." So my expectations is just to see more of how they work together to build their powers and to hopefully, see that cop get what's coming to him in the end and see them take down that corporation and get justice and get her dad's name vindicated.
Nice. I definitely, the first 3 episodes, I was really confused, and I found the show kind of hard for me to track. But it came together for me by episode 4. However, had it not come together for me by episode 4, I don't know, it might have been a little rough for me. But I really like what kept me going were the characters, and that matters for the show. Like, if it had been bad acting by Cloak and Dagger, in my opinion, the plot thus far would not have carried the show for me, to be honest with you. Like, if they had been bad actors, I'd be out. But they carried the show for those first 3 episodes and got me to episode 4. And now I'm much more interested into the plot of the actual show. So I'm actually really excited for what's ahead. I definitely like it better than Runaways, and I expected going in that this would be like a Runaways caliber, if not even worse than Runaways show. Well, I just didn't know what kind of budget or care. Like, I mean, this show, let's be honest, this show has a high chance of being canceled, even if it's a really, really good show, just because nobody really, like, everybody was talking about Luke Cage, but I haven't heard many people even talking about this show yet. So
I've been excited about this show for months.
Yeah, and also the station that they put it on.
What?
Freeform,
Wait, what?
I love how passionate she is. That's all.
She is.
Wait, what did you
remember when you weren't there, but Keem and Mo remember when Bree was like on her first podcast and she just sat there quiet and we had to call on her for her to even talk? Look how far she's come now. Look how far. Now she tells me to shut up.
Breaking balls.
I was saying that also I think maybe the reason why it's not getting the attention that it should is because of the station that it's on. Because I don't know, like, I was like, what the hell is Freeform? And then I was like, oh, wait, that used to be ABC Family or NBC. Yeah.
I still don't know what Freeform is.
Yeah.
It's on Hulu.
I thought this was coming on PAX TV when I saw that. I didn't know what Freeform was. And then it showed up on Hulu. And I was like, oh, maybe it's a Hulu show. Maybe I imagined that. And I was like, no, okay, thank you.
I didn't know Freeform was ABC Family. I haven't had cable in years.
No idea. I thought that was like the producer or something.
I'm really shocked. So this comes on ABC Family?
With like Rebels, huh? All the Rebels stuff, but when that
formerly known as ABC Family, they're rebranding and switching.
Or that was Disney.
Is this a midnight show? Is this a midnight? Is there Adult Swim?
What? I like that it's in New Orleans.
I like it's in New Orleans too.
I'm so tired of all the superheroes being in New York, but apparently there's still crime.
Yeah, this show could be what Runaways was for the comics. Like, Runaways finally gave us a city that wasn't New York in the comics, and this could be finally giving us a city that's not New York for the TV show, movies, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, I've never seen a show give a commercial for a city so much.
And Uber.
And Uber. I can't wait for the Uber. Although there was a Whole Foods ad put right in there.
That was funny though. That was a joke.
Yeah, that was a joke. But this show is one of those shows that made me go, you know what? I need to go exploring in New Orleans and just, get in a parade, talk to a spy boy.
New Orleans is dope. Yeah, it's definitely worth exploring.
So, next we're going to have to do for season 2, we'll do an on location.
Okay, let's do that. Yes.
Tell Mo
we'll
pay
for it.
On the budget.
We'll pay
Start
for
working on the budget, Mo.
All right. That sounds good.
Right?
All right. Well, I just want to say, do you have anything else to say before I wrap this up? Say goodbye to everybody. No.
Ask her Ask her. I don't want to piss her off.
I just want to say thank you, Anthony, for coming on and doing the show. Thank you, Bree, for coming on and doing the show. Thank you for telling us about Cloak and Dagger. You know what's funny is I'm seeing people start to catch up that this show even exists, but you were ahead of the curve, so I really appreciate you being on top of it. And Keem, thank you for cramming in 4 episodes in like 3 days or whatever, so you could be on the show. Thank you for being here. This was fun. And maybe next week we'll even get Mo, and then I'll have to start keeping my check marks to make sure he doesn't feel.
Yeah. Make sure he gets 2 less than everybody else. No, I'm sure it was even. I'm sure. Check the tape later.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and start a plan to cut him off every time he starts talking.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's do that. All right, well, thank you everybody for listening to Earth 2. Hopefully we will continue with these Cloak and Daggers. I know we also have a Star Wars show coming up soon when the new show starts, and Anthony could sigh a lot. And I don't know, maybe we'll be doing some other reviews. And then, of course, there's always Lucas and Mo if you just want to hear them talk into a microphone for a few hours. So I will see you guys later. Bye. Thank you, everybody.